How's it going, guys? We are back on Dragon Ball Legends, and in this video we're going to be going through some hints and tips to help you improve your gameplay, whether you're jumping into PvP or whether you're going up against the computer in PvE. But I would say this video is a more towards the beginner sort of player, but that's not to say maybe there is something that you can pick up even if you are more advanced. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We do have a like goal of 50 likes on this video, and if we manage to get it, we will come back with more advanced sort of plays and things like that as well. So like I said, hit that like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Just quickly then, before we get into the 5 top tips, it is under the assumption that you have built your team very cohesively, so that means using the main or the Z abilities from each of the characters. They all link up. So for example, with Pan, you got Sagas from the movies, so everyone in your team hits that particular tag and they all fit the movies, unless you've got them into the leader slot, obviously. And it's also under the assumption that you do have equipment on your characters. So without further ado, let's get into my 5 top tips on how to improve your Dragon Ball Legends gameplay. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first way to improve your gameplay on Dragon Ball Legends is by learning how to step. So there is 2 different ways that you can learn how to do this, and that is sidestepping and charge stepping as well. You gain loads of advantages, including possibly drawing an extra card, extra key, possibly even get your Vanish back, all that sort of good stuff as well. So let's have a look at them. So sidestepping then is probably the easiest out of the 2 type of steps that you can do, and all you have to do is in between using a strike and or blast card is swipe up and go left or right, and then carry on your combo by clicking another blast or strike card. It is important to note that a green card and a blue card won't connect when you do this, but you can carry on your combo once again with strike and blast cards, and you get extra benefits of being able to get a little bit of additional key. You can gain your Vanish back, you get a chance to draw another card as well, and once again you are extending that combo. But be wary, the longer that you extend a combo, the less damage that you'll do, just the way that the game is set up. But that is basically all you have to do to sidestep. Just make sure that you don't do it from long range generally, because when you sidestep with a strike card from long range, you may connect, but with a blast card, chances are you're not going to connect and the opponent will vanish, basically. So we do have another type of step. So this next type of step is a little bit hard, and I gotta be honest, it took me a little while to get used to it somewhat. But basically, in between using a strike or blast card, you go up close to the opponent, and within that split second you do a little bit of a charge and then carry on your combo. Be very careful not to drop this. That's the timing that you do have to get used to it, but you get all the same benefits as you do with sidestepping. The only thing is you get a little bit of extra key, but you don't actually regain any Vanish by doing this. So bear that in mind, but like I said, all the other sort of sides of it is very similar. So that is pretty much both the types of steps, which I do recommend that you get involved and get used to and put it within your gameplay. That will improve it considerably. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is cover changes, and you'd think that quite a lot of people are aware of this, but I've actually seen it in gameplay where people don't make advantage of it, or don't even seem to know that cover change is a thing. So essentially, cover changes is when you bring in another character, so you line it up when you're being comboed. There's different advantages to doing it depending on the characters that you use, because if you've got someone such as Zamasu, it will reduce the opponent's ki and all that sort of stuff and disrupt them quite a lot. But quite a lot of the units that we get in these days, especially for example the Ultra Hit, the Ultra Gogeta, have these cover changes where it's against strike or blast card as well 2 times, and you can combo that into a blue card, and that is where to get quite a lot of damage sometimes, especially if you're against someone. I'll be honest, sometimes if they're a little bit better than you, if you do get lucky with a cover change, you can get quite a lot of damage off. So it's worth noting, like I said, the cover changes depends on the characters you use, so I would also put into this point to know your characters before you go in, but like I said, it's somewhat assumed that you are doing that anyway. But cover changes are very good for disrupting the opponent. You can combo it usually into a blue card, with some characters even into their green card or others as well. So bear that in mind, the cover change is a very powerful tool. Next up then is drop of the combo or performing a drop, which is actually a really good counter against cover changes, which we just looked at, but does hold an element of risk as well, so be careful when you are using this. The main idea of it is you're expecting your opponent to switch character, and when they do this, you're going to break your own combo by overcharging or overstepping or something along those lines. So it does cancel out any of those cover changes or any of those buffs that they do get, and you can start a new fresh combo straight away, which also gives an extra damage buff as well, because as I mentioned a bit earlier on in the video, the longer you do a combo, the less damage you do basically. But like I said, be careful, because if you get it wrong, they can start a combo on you straight away. You can also drop the combo by using a blue card or something like that to basically go straight into a Rising Rush and force that Vanish as well. So use it wisely, but it is a powerful tool when used well. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is the stop time events, which you can basically do by using either a green card or your main ability, and it does what it says on the tin essentially. Because it has to play out the animation, it stops time, allowing you as the player to see what the opponent is doing. So for example, if you've got the exclamation mark come up, you know that they're going to be doing some sort of action, whether it's a strike card, blast card, or something along those sort of lines. Or on the other side of it, if they're not doing anything at all, you know to be patient and wait for them to make a move or for you to get an advantage basically. So that is stop time events, and the best time to be using these is either when you're up in close range and you can use the stop time event to see if your opponent is sidestepping or once again going for attack or something along those lines. Or another good way to use it is if you've got your opponent down to their last character, use your stop time event, whether that's a green card or usually you'd use your main ability to pull the awakening card as well. And quite often people will go for a tackle, so when you see that exclamation mark, you can actually go for your awaken arts or a blue card or something along those lines and connect it quite easily as well. And usually this is a really good way to get the legendary finish off as well, so that is a nice thing to pick up. Okay, so the fifth point I wanted to make before we move on to the what not to do's is vanishing, and this is a little bit more general, and we do have 2 points that I wanted to make out of this. So moving on to the first point, which is perfect vanish, also known as PV, which is when you essentially vanish the same time your opponent uses a card or vice versa. It's a very powerful tool, and they have updated it to actually show a little bit of an animation when you get a PV off. And it's very powerful because as soon as you get a PV off, you can do whatever you want. You can go straight into a strike card, blast card, blue card, and most of the green cards if they are sort of like a rushing forwards green cards. So very powerful to get your combo started, but it does kind of mean that usually players do kind of fish for this PV, so they are jumping around quite a lot and like to go out to long range and jump around trying to get that PV. So as long as you can work around that, once again, and you know about PV, it is quite handy to have in your gameplay. As soon as you see that you've got one, just go straight in for a combo basically. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about then was forcing the vanish on your opponent. You can do this in a couple of different ways, whether you drop combo and use a blue card, or whether you wait for them to sidestep and in between the animation you go for a blast card or a long range blue card or something like that. Because they're actually sidestepping, they'll be stuck in the animation and they won't be able to PV you. All they can do is just vanish. And just bear in mind when they do vanish, make sure to swipe up, giving you a couple of different options. So you can either try and vanish any attack they do, but it does leave you a bit to exposure of possibly them attacking you in between your sidestep. Or you can just tap attack, or you can go straight away for like a strike card or a blast card or something like that, depending on the character you're going up against and all that sort of stuff. So forcing the vanish is quite handy and forces quite a lot of opponents as well to actually change character, giving you a little bit more of an advantage in the actual battlefield as well. So a couple of things there on vanish that will help you quite a lot within your gameplay, hopefully. Let's go into a couple of things of what not to do in your gameplay. So that is the main points that I wanted to mention to improve your gameplay whilst playing Dragon Ball Legends. Hopefully it did help, and if it did, let me know down below and make sure to hit that like and subscribe. But before we go anywhere, we're also going to jump into some honorary mentions of some things not to do when you are playing in PvP that I do see quite often, and it basically exposes you a little bit more the risk out outweighs the reward. So let's get into some don'ts before we finish up the video. Let's go through it. So first up is a mid-range strike. I mean, there is some caveat to this. If you've got a blast armor unit, then in some circumstances you may want to do the mid-range strike, but we may know by now that there is basically three places you can be on the map in Dragon Ball Legends. That is up close, that is mid, and that is far away. If you are mid, please don't use a striker cards, basically. Like I said, unless you've got blast armor units and the opponent is using a blast card. But basically, if you just throw a strike card out there from mid-range, it gives the opponent, especially if they've got their Vanish, somewhat the advantage. Because especially if they're backing up a little bit, they can vanish your strike card and just go straight away. And because you're stuck in that movement or that animation, there's not much you can do about it. They're going to get a free combo on you. And I do see it quite often, especially within my videos. You may have seen it or something like that. And some other YouTubers have mentioned it as well. But basically, mid-range strike, try your best not to do it unless the circumstance really calls for it. Okay, so this is something that I see like very early on people do and very much beginners do as well, but it's worth noting, is when you double click buttons, so you'll line up two strike cards, whether that is in the middle of a combo and you're just carrying on the combo without sidestepping as we talked about earlier, or whether you're using a blast card, someone's dodged it and you just hit the blast card again, so you basically do two cards. Basically stop doing that, be a bit more patient, just wait out with your cards and all that sort of stuff. Wait for your opponent to open himself out, essentially. Reason being, if you just use and line up two cards, not only can the opponent use something like a cover change against you or something like that, if you lined up two blast cards, when someone does PV you or even vanishes you, if you do two blast cards in a row, they've got a free combo on you basically, because once again you are stuck in these animations. So be a bit more patient, just make sure to line up the cards when you've actually got the combo going, or you sidestepped or something along those lines. Just bear that in mind, essentially, to not just click cards, essentially. Just use your patience and wait for them an opening and then use your cards efficiently, basically. Okay, the next one's a little bit of an odd one, but I do see people doing it when it's like full screen strikes, rising rushes, blue cards, things like that as well. Like I said, I may do another video on this depending on how much traction it gets, and we'll go into a bit more advanced techniques where sometimes using the blue cards in long range is good. And once again, with a strike card, you can do things called a strike cancel from long range, which can gain you advantage in the battle as well. But basically using like long range or full range strikes and rising rushes and things like that. I'm not saying sometimes you can't get it off, because you can. Sometimes it does hit. But when you do it from long range, it gives the opponent a long time to think about what they're going to do to counter or anything like that. If you long range rise and rush and they've got their Vanish, basically, they're vanishing your rise and rush, and that's a waste, essentially. I do see it happen. If you're long range, just be very careful about what you're going to be doing. Like I said, maybe the more advanced player knows that you're going to strike cancel or something like that, or you know the opponent hasn't got a Vanish or any blue cards or anything like that, so you can rise and rush. There are some circumstances, but don't just throw it out there is basically what I'm saying. I do see people do it, and I think it's pretty incredible sometimes, so just be wary of when you're using them. So there are my hints and tips which should hopefully improve your Dragon Ball Legends gameplay, whether you're in PvP or whether you're jumping into events and PvE content or anything along those lines. Just bear in mind with co-op and raids, obviously the battle format is a little bit different, so maybe not everything is applicable, but it should help you with the majority of the game at the very least. So if you have learned something, or even if you haven't, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. And also, if we get to a like goal of 50 likes, I will come back and aim to do a more advanced version of this video as well. So like I said, if it has helped you, make sure to hit that like button. I don't think there's much else to add, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you later. Ciao.